Tier 10 esports indeed. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the WGLNA Season 2 Gold League. I'm your host, Christian Toma. To my left, David Dijon Williams. Make sure to check us out on Facebook and YouTube /WGLNA. And as always, follow us on Twitter @WGLNA so you guys can stay up to date on what's happening in the community around you.
I don't know how you wouldn't by now, but if you haven't, go ahead to battleviewer.com.
That's right.
For the same Twitch chat you know and love, plus easy access to our YouTube, Twitter, match listings, match standings, and now that the regular season has begun, fantasy.
Woo! That is right. So go over to battleviewer.com right now, guys, and check it out. Let's quickly go over the format for you if you guys aren't up to date. We are running the 768 format this season, which means Tier 10s. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. 7 players on a team, 68 points allotted for tank choice, Tier 10 maximum, Tier 8 minimum. The mode is attack and defense. Each team will have an equal opportunity to do both. The first team to win 5 battles will take the match. And if it's tied up, they go to a tiebreaker map. And speaking about maps, David, let's talk about those.
We've got some maps returning, some new ones. So let's start off with returning maps of Himmelsdorf, Ruinberg, Steps, Mines, and Ghost Town.
Yep.
We've added in a few more to round out this this pack. We have removed Lakeville. We've added Murovanka, Prorovka, Cliff, and Sand River. So there's a lot more excitement out there to be had.
Yeah.
And I think the only one we haven't seen yet is Pro.
That's right. So fantastic matches indeed. Speaking of matches for the maps, let's take a look at Thursday's matches if you guys missed anything. Up first, we had High Voltage beating Simple Tankers 5-4, followed by Yo losing to Noble 0-5. Third, Color Wanted losing to Aquatic M60s 1-5. And finally for the night, Ping 999 beating Googly Bobbers 5-3. Dave, let's walk through some of these matches. Up first, High Voltage versus Simple Tankers. Now, I wasn't here for this. I got to watch it, which was a very interesting experience. But up first, Simple Tankers going a 3-1 onto Steps, then moved into Himmelsdorf, where High Voltage just showed their dominance, tied it up, and then beat them on the tiebreaker map, which was Himmelsdorf. Some of the highlights from that map.
You know, it's kind of hard to pick an overall highlight. I'd probably have to say the closing game there where High Voltage pushed, but I'll get to that in just a second. Both teams played up and down throughout that entire set, and I thought they both could held their heads up high from what happened. I think Simple Takers might have been able to pull that out, but High Voltage obviously made some mistakes as well. But obviously, High Voltage deserved to take it with that hard push at the last match to take out Flack in his VK4502B and pretty much secure the win by blocking off the 1 cap and creating the fight down the 2-3. So great play by High Voltage there to round everything out.
Absolutely. High Voltage is doing it again, winning their matches so far this season. Will they continue? That's up to debate. Up next, Noble versus Yo. Noble clean sweeping Yo 5-0. Started out on Cliffs, showed their domination. Then we went to Sand River. So the first time we saw that map this season, second week. So good for them. But some of the things you saw from that match.
Well, Noble definitely knows Cliff. I mean, they should at this point. So they kind of put on a clinic of all the different ways to play it. I felt Yo had some good rotations, some good instincts, but they're a little bit behind, just a little bit of inexperienced hesitance. But their original ideas are great. And I think it could have been very close if they adapted with some autoloaders. But when we get to Sand River, I feel like that's very tilted in the defensive side. I think it's pretty tricky to lose on the defensive side unless somebody comes up with a brand new meta for it. But in my experience, I would just avoid playing Sand River. Yeah,
and it'll also be interesting to see how these new teams will start banding out Cliffs against these more experienced teams because we were talking about how it is so experience-based. Up next, Caller Wanted losing to Aquatic M60s 1-5. Now, Aquatic went 3-1 on Ruinberg, and then we went into Ghost Town. It's the first time we saw that as well, where they picked up the 2 victories. Some of the things you saw from that match.
Well, Aquatic M60s, formerly known as TBD from the qualifiers, and they've determined that their name will be Aquatic M60s. They played a lot better than we've seen them play in the past, especially in the qualifiers. Color Wanted beat them in the qualifiers, so I kind of expected that to happen again. But Color Wanted struggling here and there with a couple of their rotations and just overall not executing the way they should, and Aquatic M60s showed up to play. So it's reflected in the score, 5-1.
Absolutely. Fantastic job. And something also not seeing from Color Wanted a lot, we saw them do so well in the qualifiers. So, going against this team, it was kind of like, all right, well, now they know, again, more of these just tactics hopefully they can implement. Finally, Ping 999 beating Googly Bobbers 5-3. Now, we started out on Himmelsdorf, where it tied up 2-2, went into Steps, and it looked like it was going to tie up again, but then Googly Bobbers had that DC. There was a ram in the final couple seconds for Ping to take it 5-3. Some of the things you saw from that final one.
Well, I felt it was fairly neck and neck, although I felt Googly Bobbers should have had a stronger performance. They've got more experience and just veterancy on that team, a lot of player talent. Not that Ping 999 doesn't as well. They're obviously a pretty good team, #1 in the qualifiers. Yeah. But a lot of it came down to where I thought it was going to go into a draw, like you suggested. Googly Bobbers I7 disconnected, drove right out in the middle of the field, got it blown up, and that pretty much started a kind of a domino effect that led to Ping being able to take it 5-3. not sure if that would happen, play that match
the
10 times, but
Sure.
it is that you got to play for the day, and I feel like Googly Bobbers left them the room for that to happen, and that's their mistake.
All right, well, ladies and gentlemen, now let's go into, before we start to the matches, checking out the season fantasy we have for you guys. If you guys aren't familiar, go to fantasywgl.com or in the bottom right-hand corner at battleviewer.com, where you guys should be already. You can push that fantasy button. That is going to bring up the fantasy site. What you guys are seeing on the bottom hand of your screen right now is David and I's picks for fantasy. What you guys do is you go on, you pick your 7 players for your team. As they play, they accumulate points for you guys, and points lead to tons of prizes, such as in-game premium time, in-game gold, and in-game premium tanks that you can't get anywhere else, like the Hype 59. So go over there and check that out as well. Also, we are partnering with Vulcan. I want to remind you guys, so go to vulcan.com for another WGLNA competition that they are having for your chance to win even more prizes. And make sure you guys use the code word World of Tanks. So again, vulcan.com. Go over there right now and check it out. But all right, back to fantasy, David. Let's talk about some of the picks that we've got. Anything that you've trends that you've been seeing this past week, or what are some of your top picks for this?
Well, I
for
can
tonight?
get into that in a second. But what is your top pick?
Okay,
Who
so
is your top pick?
For me, it was Ox. So I'm picking Ox from High Voltage as my top pick. I mean, he's performing amazingly. We're not seeing him in artillery anymore.
Yep.
We're seeing him play these heavy tanks, which proves more and more points. So that is it for me. He did a fantastic job the first week. I think we're talking about he might even be the leader of points throughout the entire league so far.
Well, he's definitely up there in terms of points per battle, which is kind of what I look at the most. So I'd have to go with Ox Thief as well. I think Akula is a very close second, but he has played in artillery, I believe, and I think they kind of dragged him down. He's taking a lot more of a forward role than he has in the past of VK or FE 215Bs with Dodoma. Not necessarily a tank I would have expected him to see. And so some of these instances, he's just not in the position to get that damage. So it's still top 3 pick for me. But as people were able to see, our picks were almost completely identical. I actually did make one change right before we went live, and I subbed out Militant for T1 Diabetic. I have a little bit more faith in eClipse. I think they might be able to take a game or two off Simp.
Yeah.
And I think Noble's match should be not as close. But overall, I'm sorry, Militant. I really wanted to pick you for the first time ever, but it's just not going to happen this time.
And also, another thing for High Voltage, Duck Thief is going to be playing tonight as well, and he wasn't playing last week.
Yes, yeah, I'm not entirely sure how that's going to pan out yet, so I'm kind of hesitant to put more picks invested in High Voltage. There's still plenty of time to make up for lost space, so I'm playing it kind of safe here in the early season, and we'll see how that pans out as we keep going. Absolutely.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, keeping going, we are going to indeed, because tonight's matches are coming up for you guys. Up first is going to be eClipse versus Simp, followed by Simple Tankers versus Ping 999. Third is going to be High Voltage versus Yo. And finally, to close of the night, WGLNA versus Season 1 champions Noble. David, out of the 4 matches tonight, which one are you most excited to see, and who do you think's going to take it?
I'm going to have to go with Eclipse versus Simp. Eclipse is a team that I expected out of all the new teams to be one of the top of the new group. And I'm not entirely sure. If this was tier 8, I would say hands down they're gonna be one of the best in the new guys. But at tier 10, I'm not entirely sure. I've got a lot of faith in some of the people on that team. Simp's been playing as well, playing well for a long time now. I feel like their performance against 07 wasn't to the best of their ability. I feel like it was the same for 07, but those two teams have always kind of struggled against each other and played up when they've played other people. So I'm interested to see how the new team squares off against Simp. Some people say this is a more relatively even match, but I don't necessarily see it that way at the moment, so Eclipse has something to prove.
All right, and it'll be exciting to see. We haven't seen Eclipse before perform, so it will be that kind of new element added to it as well. My highlight would have to be actually for the final one, Noble versus Ding. Noble, we've only played a week, but they've showed such a dominance. And if they are the Season 1 champions, and I'm excited to see if they can continue that domination throughout the entire season as we go. Ladies and gentlemen, that'll do it for our pregame show. Thank you so much for joining us. Before we start match number 1, let's take a look at why you should go to fantasy.com and also some of the Week 1 highlights.
It's a catastrophe. And right now,
It's like my high school.
these two over here, they understand that for the next minute and a half,
What the heck?
this is their job.
What?
Oh, you have to come over here. You have to.
Sure.
And
It's amazing.
Highwall's just going to force it. And right now, Simple Tankers is far too spread in order to capitalize on what they've got going here. They're trying to make a flank. It looks like High Voltage was expecting something along those lines, and they're trying to overmatch and take out Flag before the rest of the team shows up. They could get Flag and Pride, and it will be a 7-on-5 if that happens. Flag has one more shot left. Pride has maybe one. Flag goes down to Ox Thief, leaving a lot of tanks with great position.
Showing complete dominance here right now from this defensive side. They have over 5,000 points of HP in the lead. Sherm took that 243. That did that one damage a little bit, but that is such a huge HP deficit if you are Color Wanted, and you have to be pushing into Noble because you are on the offensive side. A fantastic opening there, and the battle has not been finished as Canadian Impact finally finishes off DRS. Dale takes down Canadian in response, but Akula finds Magenta Panda, and they're just going to finally just kind of clean this one up. It is 3 tanks, now just 2. It'll be 1 once Delph goes, and that is...
Soldier. If they can take out one of those bat chats early, that'll be huge. Noble's doing a little bit of an adjustment here, not going to the outside. They're going to pour over the middle, try and focus on Fulcrus and Ajax. They are taking out Fulcrus, 406, Ajax 813 damage gone. Ajax is almost dead, and he goes down to Germ. The rest of Noble starting to pour through. Yo's trying to collapse in on sideways. That is a good move. They get under Militant and Dodoma. Germ is isolated now. Fulcrus isolated as well. External trying to shot for that shot. X-Soldier's going to pick it up. Bobby trying to get another shot on External as Yo is trying to collapse in on External and Akula and take them down. X-Soldier's no longer an issue to them. He is reloading. Dodoma and Canadian Impact coming in behind. Militant is reloading as well. Just going to stay up there. Look mean.
That dominance photo finish does take on Synergy, and Silent and Mice picking up Fosta. They're trying to claw their way back. They don't want to be out of it just quite yet. It is a 1 more victory, and they'll be ended. They don't want it to go to a tiebreaker, but it looks like that might be where it's going as Vector takes on another one. Adroxus finds Warbandor. Vector does take Dryness, but Crimson takes Rocks, and now it's a 3-on-3. Simp clawing the way back. The HP still in favor of 07, but at amazing positions as well. But if Simp can do some amazing focus, they might be able to pull their way out of this. Crimson, though, one more shot on that jet. He goes down, and Vectro going to seal his fate, and it looks like Simp is done. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the WGLNA Season 2 Gold League. I'm your host, Christian Toma. To my left is David Williams. Make sure to check us out on Facebook and YouTube /WGLNA. If you guys aren't watching this on battleviewer.com, go over there right now and check it out. And finally, follow us on Twitter @WGLNA so you guys can stay up to date on what's happening in the community around you and answer for us the question of the day.
Which is, what is your favorite Tier 10 tank?
All right, so my favorite Tier 10 tank, it has to be the Waffle, the E100. Because for season 1, it was the Borzig, and that's the Waffle. We call that the Waffle. And this is actually named the Waffle. And it's so fun to see a tank destroyer with an autoloader and just wreck face. I have to say that is my favorite tank by far. Which one's yours?
I'm going to have to go with the IS-7. It was my first Tier 10. It's been through the ringer. It's been buffed, it's been nerfed, and it's kind of back in play, and I've been playing it again recently, and I really enjoy it. So just a lot of memories in that tank.
Yeah.
And it's always stand out for his favorite for me.
Hashtag the feels indeed. Ladies and gentlemen, before we get into the first match of the night, let's take a look at the standings for the season. Only 1 week has gone by, but on top, we have the Season 1 champions, Noble versus Nexus High Voltage, this season, second place champions, followed by Aquatic M60s, Yo and Ping. Simp down with 2, and kind of going down from the list, 07, Simple Tankers, and the follow-ons before. David, do you think that is indicative of what the season will continue to be, or do you think we're definitely going to see a lot of mix-ups? I mean, only 1 week has passed.
Well, you know, the top 2, yeah, sure. I expect them to stay
They might stay up there.
But the rest, there's going to be a lot of chaos. Some of the teams haven't played as many games as the other ones, and
Sure.
I think we'll start catching up somewhere around mid-season.
All right, well, up first, ladies and gentlemen, we have Eclipse versus Simp, and the face-off is ready for you guys. On the side of Eclipse, we got Conky. On the side of Simp, we've got Overload Prime. Gentlemen, welcome to the face-off. And Conky, Eclipse, we're going to go ahead and start with you guys. Now, this is the first time we're going to be seeing you this season. We didn't see you guys play last week. Do you feel like you have a sort of advantage watching a whole week's worth of plays? Is there things you've changed because of that first week? Oh, we can't quite hear you, Conky. There might be a mic problem. Is there anything good?
Perhaps we're supposed to sign.
Oh, it's a sign language.
Can you hear now?
Hey, we got
Oh,
it.
it's this
Got it.
one.
That's the one.
I thought it was my mic on the webcam. Oh, that's my bad.
No, you're killing it, man.
All right, let's
Do you want
do
me
this.
to re-ask
Yeah.
the question, or you got it?
I heard the question. It was we took the time. Everyone on my team sat there. We watched the games together, made our little comments, and we enjoyed it. I took it as quite a little vacation from the league for the first week.
Sure.
It was nice.
Good. All right.
What is your favorite tier 10 tank, Conky?
I'm gonna have to go with Toma and go with the waffle or the 261 with AP.
Hey, I can agree with you there. That one's a lot of fun. Yeah.
I haven't quite dabbled with that one yet.
He's shaking his head because he hates Artie.
It's like you gotta have fun. You gotta have fun.
We'll get to you, Prime.
Yeah.
Don't you worry. You'll get your chance.
Overload Prime. How about we get to you right now?
All right.
Now, you guys have played a week. You guys have played a match so far. Is there anything that was going into this that you thought, oh, this is definitely how we're going to do things? Has anything changed just because of the few matches that you guys have played, or is everything still consistent, still feeling your way out?
So far, we're still trying to feel our way out. As you saw, like on the Tuesday match against 07, we weren't as prepared as we'd like to be. We actually went to a tiebreaker, which, considering that this is a new format, we're not too surprised that happened. And, considering that eClipse is known to be, I believe they were #1 for the Silver League when they moved up. It'll be interesting to see where we stand against these new Silver League teams, especially when over half the teams are, from the Silver League now.
Sure.
And hopefully I'm not a robot today.
Oh, all right. Yeah. I hope so, too.
Overlord Prime doesn't want to be a robot. I'm not even going to continue with that line.
Thank you, Conky.
Thank you, Conky. So, Overlord Prime, what is your favorite tier 10 tank?
There you go.
The 50B right
There we
now.
go.
That's the best tier 10 autoloader in the game. Hands down.
If I were to pick anything besides the i7 for nostalgia reasons,
50B.
it's the 50B.
We were watching a 50B today reverse ram another tank, and it was quite enjoyable indeed. Before we get into the match, Overlord Prime, do you have anything to say to Conky before we start?
Good luck to eClipse. Let's have a good match and have a good game, guys.
All right, Conky, your response.
Good luck. Have fun.
All right, gentlemen. Good luck to the both of you, and we'll see you very, very shortly. All right, man. So much nostalgia factors going in here with these tier 10 tanks. When we talked about this is the end game of World of Tanks. So obviously this is what a lot of people have. And we were talking about earlier. If you're a pro player, you just don't play them as much. But a lot of them do have experience in it.
Well, they didn't play them as much, but now,
Right,
that's all
now it's
play,
they can
obviously.
play.
I'm playing them now, and I haven't played them in over a year.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
it's always kind of an
fun
enjoyable
feeling.
landscape. I'll platoon with one of the pros. And some of them expect me to actually be good. It's like, no, guys, I haven't played
I've
this
been out
in
for a while. No,
Right.
you're a lot better just having those. Again, being seasoned, just playing this game in a professional format. So many benefits to that, as we have been seeing. Ladies and gentlemen, let's take a look at the rosters before we get into this battle for the side of eClipse, for the side of SIMP. Again, eClipse we've just now seeing for the first time. David, some of the people to keep your eye out for.
Well, T1 Diabetic and Honey Badger, and what's the other one I am looking for here? There's another one I'll get back to him. Those are kind of the standout players for eClipse. And for SIMP, we've got a huge list. We obviously start with Adroxys and Nits are kind of the point leaders, but that's not necessarily always indicative of who is the best. So oftentimes it is, but Overlord Prime is a great player. Dryness is a great player, but he also usually has to call. And sometimes, honestly, historically, he's been one of the few callers that actually plays an actual tank, like a tier 8 back in the day, while calling. I always have a lot of respect for that. It's a difficult thing to do.
Right.
He did it quite well. So overall, just Simp's got a great team, and I'm really looking forward to see how well eClipse competes here.
Yeah, I liked what Overload Prime was talking about of how it is interesting. A lot of these teams coming out of the Silver League, a lot of them we're seeing new for the first time in the season. We will see right now, ladies and gentlemen, how SIMP stands up to eClipse as we are getting ready for match number 1. It is SIMP on offense, eClipse on defense. Let's get right into it and take a look at what we've got for our tanks.
So we're starting off today with teams on the wrong side. We'll try and keep it all together for you here. We've got eClipse and 250Bs and IS-7 2 batch shots, WE100 and AMX CDC. For SIMP, we have an FE215B, 2 E5s, T57 heavy batch shot at WE100 and AMX 1390. I keep calling the T57 the heaven all the time.
Yeah, it's a heavenly tank to drive.
There was definitely a point in time where I would have called it heaven. It's not quite at that place anymore. But man, when it first debuted, it was amazing. So for original movements here again, and we apologize. We'll try and get this sorted as quickly as possible. That is eClipse in the red on offense and SIMP in the blue on defense. eClipse running somewhat of a spread offense here, trying to get some feelers out, try and find where the majority of SIMP is. Most of them are stacked in between A7 and 9. So my guess is they were a lot more concerned about eClipse trying to do a A-line rush than anything else. Hopefully they've got some sort of plans to move elsewhere, but eClipse definitely actually playing into what SIMP wants them to do here. SIMP has nothing to tie up those 50 Bs. That's a little bit tricky because they get side shots into that northern area, but eClipse is very likely going to drive a lot of their tanks directly into this waiting trap of Overlord Prime, Photo Finish, Droxus, and Nits. As long as these guys don't get lit up from the side by those 50 Bs, they are in business. Drynitz is probably the biggest threat for eClipse. They're going to have to take him out very quickly. He is in a WE100. If you're not familiar with this tank, looks like he is running the 128, as he should, in my opinion. So he has the same gun as the Mouse, or the JT88, or sorry, the Yog Tiger. But it fires 6 shots in a row before it reloads, so that is one vicious tank. It's got pretty good traverse, some of the highest view range in the game, and it's overall more stealthy than you would expect a big box of armor like that to be. Yes, it's rather disturbing, actually. It can appear out of nowhere in front of you, and you're just like, well,
there it is.
Hands off keyboard, it's over. But right now, SIMP rolling down the eastern side. eClipse has kind of an interesting setup here. I mean, they could have sprung their trap.
Very spread.
I'm not entirely sure why they slowed it down or if this is their actual gameplay. The CDC in particular is a little bit of an intriguing pick to me. Okay. It's a great tank. It can compete at tier 10 to a certain extent, as in it can damage them very reliably, or fairly reliably, I should say. It's got a pretty good gun.
Okay.
But it depends. You know, shooting in front of an E100 or something, it might be a little tricky. But the big thing here is it's just paper. Not that that matters at this tier. Everybody's going to ruin him. But I don't really expect to see how they're supposed to get him in the fight. I'm not entirely sure what I would pick to have other than that. So maybe they're onto something. Maybe we'll see some meta develop from that.
Oh, we got a little bit of damage there going out, though, from out of sight and Master in that batch out inside of eClipse. Out of sight for SIMP. And now out of sight has been spotted up there in that A3 area, just sitting back. Not quite sure. Is it are there windows through there that he's spotting him, or is that just? No,
out of sight would have had to have poked around this corner right here, and Master Pupil is probably set up on it. As you can see, Pupil's actually got a little bit. That's the guy I was trying to think of. Master Pupil is another one of the standout players for eClipse. So he's got a little bit of an angle here, and you may wonder how he can shoot around that corner or even poke that corner. It's actually cut at about a 45-degree angle, so there is a little bit of space where he owns his corner against out of sight without getting peppered by all the rest of the people who are over there down that road. So it's a little bit, it's an ideal corner in a lot of ways for an offensive unit. They can square each degree away before they have to poke all the way around a corner. So if you think about it this way, any shape that has as many corners as possible, obviously a circle has the most, you have more angles that you can incrementally kind of look around. Whereas a 90-degree, you don't know what's on the other side of it until it's too late.
Sure.
But the more corners, so basically a double corner in that instance where it's cut off, you have 2 corners. You can incrementally take each part 45 degrees at a time, which opens you up to less fire in return. Maybe a little bit complicated, but I'm experimenting.
Geometry.
Experimenting with talking about this a little bit more. As previously, I always just went, it's complicated.
Oh, good for you, David.
It is, and it's even more complicated than that. But I'm trying to keep it in kind of a nice little pocket area.
Great.
So we'll find out how well that pans out.
eClipse.
When we reach at a later time.
eClipse now moving into the city, going right back to their spawn point. They're keeping those 250Bs out there. Now, looking at kind of their movements, what were they just waiting for a trap that didn't get sprung? Is that what happened? Or now they're like, all right, guys, we waited long enough. This is the time. Is this all part of the plan? What are you seeing?
So eClipse is on offense. They were looking for some amount of intelligence, probably. They probably expected some people to come down the 0 line for SIMP, and then that would know that their northern rush is ready to go. But they're not getting it. SIMP is playing a very, very good game, denying intelligence right now. And this is a tactic that was largely kind of lost in 754, but it was everything in 742. You had to keep people guessing. And I'm interested to see exactly how it pans out in this current format and how important it is. Right now, it's robbing eClipse of everything they need to know where they want to go here. But they have waited long enough and dragged SIMP out of the pocket. But SIMP is starting to rotate back a little bit. They are biased towards that northern cap, so they still are in position. I expect the first person to cross this cap to get absolutely lit up by all these tanks in Delta Village.
Here we go right now. Everyone is spotted. It's going to be Baby Dragon taking 1,700 points of damage. He does take out of sight down, but one more shot, and he should be falling, and that's going to be a tank down for eClipse and for SIMP. Photo finish, picking up Baby Dragons here, and that is a 1-4-1 exchange. Next is going to be Master Pupil on the chopping block. 407 in that bat chat, and one more, and he's going to go on well. Meanwhile, we have those 50 Bs for eClipse shooting over to SIMP. Drynitz right now taking a good chunk of damage in that E100. He's looking for Master Pupil. Meanwhile, Druck and Dark God Zim putting on that cap pressure for eClipse. 27 seconds on the clock, and that's going to make SIMP now come around from Delta Village, remove those spots, and start pushing to find those resets. Master Pupil is one more shot away. He has 3 shots remaining in that bat chat, not choosing to reload, which is probably wise because he's going to get pushed on any second here. A shot there going out for Drock. 14 seconds on the clock. SIMP now just needing a couple shots. The first shot there missing, it looks like, from Adroxus. Shot going to Overload Prime from the 50 over from the side. Down to 7, getting down to 6. SIMP needs to find this reset quickly, or eClipse is going to be picking up this victory. Drynitz taking a lot of damage there, 481, and Adroxus too, over 1,100 points of damage. A nice reset goes into Drock. Master Pupil taking down Drynitz. Overlord Prime responds by taking Master down. Overlord does take Dark Guts in right before Drock takes him out of the fight as well. 4 tanks for eClipse against 4 for SIMP. eClipse, again, is on the offense. Drock actually having to back off the cap. Meanwhile, Crimson Corsair in that bad chat, unloading his full clip onto those 50 Bs. Meanwhile, another shot going across. Looks like from a, was that a Droxus over there? Doing some good work. Backing up Crimson Corsair over in the Delta Village. Drock in that I-7 has backed out. He takes a shot onto Nitz, 486 points. And what you guys are seeing on your screen is Crimson doing a nice little dance, taking those 2 AMX 50 Bs who decided to leave him alone. They're not going to press again. And here's eClipse with some more cap pressure, but this time it is on the eastern cap. Those 50 Bs are going to try to split up SIMP. And as David, is this something that you would think was wise in this situation with only 44 seconds on the clock?
It's hard to say exactly what is best for eClipse right now. I will say it's a daring move, and I think there's a good chance the Crimson Corsair can kill both of these 50 Bs if he plays it trickily. But right now, they've essentially pitted Crimson Corsair to stop these two. It is the only play, so I do like it to a certain extent. They've effectively eliminated 3 different tanks and created a 2v1 situation here. It's gone to Crimson to take it home.
Oh, here we go. 35 seconds on the clock. A nice reset from Crimson there. 20 seconds overall. If eClipse cannot cap this in the time, simple pick up the victory because they're the ones who are on defense. Adroxus and Crimson going down to the 50B. It's going to be 9 seconds on the clock, though, and that is not going to be enough time for them to cap. It looks like SIMP is going to pick up this victory. A fantastic try from eClipse, but just not enough time. Congratulations to SIMP for picking that one up. Wow, I mean, that was, like I said, a final push in there. I definitely get it. They were eliminating all those tanks over in the north to make sure that Crimson could do it. He did do it. He is a skilled player. It didn't quite work out for him there, but they allowed that to go so long. I mean, they allowed the 8 minutes to kind of run out.
eClipse definitely spent too much time trying to find their avenue in there, and they had the exact same look that they were waiting for a much longer time. I'm impressed with how well they played out of a lot of the stuff that happened to them, and some of those decisions they made there at the end. Obviously, the 250 Bs on cap, once I had a little bit more time to look at it, seemed like probably the best option. I don't think they had the time there from the beginning. I didn't get a good look at the clock. I was a little bit too caught up in whether the 50 Bs could actually, or whether Crimson could actually stop 250 Bs, as that's, it's very, very difficult to do. I'm actually impressed he didn't just get tracked and killed right there in the open. It's not supremely difficult, although the angles that we're dealing with, it makes it a little bit harder. But anyways, great initial instincts by eClipse, and if they can kind of brush up some of their execution points there, they would have had a much better chance. However, that also applies to SIMP. They got almost 2 tanks right out of the gate.
Yes.
And those were huge pickups. Now, if they'd been able to brush up some of their execution as well, then they would have been in business. But eClipse technically almost capped them out very early, and they probably would have capped them out if they had had a little bit more time. So a little bit snappier movements there. Yeah. And even if the game had played exactly where it was, no better decisions, just a little bit more time, that would have been Eclipse's game. So interesting start so far.
Well, that we're kind of talking about just the importance of SIMP doing a great job denying that vision from Eclipse, which would cause a team to, I'm assuming, if you're in that position, kind of be hesitant, like, oh, yeah, I don't want to push here, I don't want to push here, and if I do, it's just all that the process that takes to make those decisions. When you get into that situation as a caller, if you're on Eclipse's side, like, guys, we don't have vision, we don't have any information for them. What do? Do you just go, we're doing this, go, and you just got to hope for the best?
Yes.
Okay.
That's it.
Wow. Done.
When you don't have any information and you're on offense, you're going to lose either way. Just the beauty. This is the biggest improvement to the league as all the seasons have gone on. As we've strayed away from the time where there were 2 caps, now it's 1 cap.
Right.
So the offensive team, one team always has
They
the
have to do
onus.
it.
They have to
Right.
make that first push. And in this instance, it was eClipse, and there's not a whole lot they could do here.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are getting ready to go into the next battle, SIMP versus eClipse. We have switched sides. Let's get right down into it and take a look at what we've got for our tanks.
So for eClipse, we have two FE215Bs, 2 E5s, or sorry, 1 E5, an Object 140, T62A, an Object 432, and a Waffentrager Panzer 4. While a SIMP has an IS-4, an E5, a Batchat, an Object 140, an STB, a W100, and an AMX 1390. Again, our colors are backwards.
Switch the colors,
We will
guys.
get that sorted as quickly as possible.
So here we go. Nits out of sight.
Maybe out of
Adroxus. They are all on SIMP. So what you guys see as far as over the tanks that are blue, that is SIMP. Over the tanks that are red, that is eClipse. But on the overall AI, those colors are just switched for you. So far, we've got SIMP now on the offense. They are pushing, looks like very heavily to this northern cap. Baby Dragons going a little bit different place. We usually see out of sight, kind of tucking behind those houses. He's just sitting right out in the open. David, what is that going to do for him? No, yeah, he's not even moving. He's just spotted now. Looks like he is not going to go anywhere at all. Now he's decided to get around. Some shots now going off as we have a very aggressive push for SIMP right down this beeline over in the north, going through. Will eClipse be set up enough to deal with this? As a lot of their members are still in Delta Village. They're coming around, and this is going to be SIMP initiating the fight onto Baby Dragons. Nits, though, taking a lot of damage. Some beautiful focus fire coming out from eClipse, and Drock is going to take Nits. A 140 already out of the picture for SIMP. There is some cap pressure being applied. Crimson Corsairs next one is going to fall. Drock picking that one up as well. eClipse taking down 2 members of SIMP almost immediately. And here comes the quick cap for SIMP. They are putting 3 members on the northern here. Adroxus photo finish and out of sight, shooting on a Baby Dragons who barely managed to get out with his life. He's going to be up to Overlord Prime to shut this guy down. The STB1 taking down that Object 432. And here comes the cavalry. eClipse pushing in from all the sides across from Delta Village. 6 seconds on the clock. They need to find a reset now. I'm not sure if SIMP is going to be able to hold this one out as some shots are going to be coming all the way through. It's down to 1, but there's a quick reset there. Overlord Prime doing his best to try to track any members that he can, but it is not. eClipse is now barreling over the side of SIMP. 61 seconds. The cap is bouncing all over the place. T1 Diabetic is low, but he is now behind cover. Adroxus takes some damage there in that E5. 14 seconds on the clock, but again, eClipse is there. They should have no problem taking down these tanks, getting the resets when they need to. T1 Diabetic is low, but there's still 6 tanks up for eClipse against the now just 4 for SIMP as Overlord Prime takes down T1 Diabetic, but Honey Badger taking down Adroxus. 9 seconds on the clock. It is getting extremely low, but every time eClipse pushes, they get a shot, they get the reset. Dark God Zim taking down Overlord Prime, and now it is just a matter of time as eClipse finishes up the rest of SIMP. Photo finish and out of sight can do nothing. Master People taking that one down. And we just have, after Photo goes down in that IS-4, the Waffentrager, the E100, my favorite tank. Dry Nits all by himself with 5 minutes and 8 seconds to go. He is on offense against 5 members. There's nothing, David, that he can do. And this looks like it's going to be a pickup for eClipse.
That was a powerful response by eClipse. A lot of disciplined play on that corner. At no point in time was the cap actually really under pressure after the first reset. eClipse was completely in control there, and they just waited. They knew that all they had to do was reset the 1390. He was a little bit low, so they bided their time and made sure they were winning the HP fights. They won a lot of small fights overall, but their team cohesion was just simply better than SIMP's.
There we
They're
go.
going to take that one and tie it up 1-1.
Look at that, eClipse. There you go. You got the logo for you guys. The moon on eClipse. Congratulations to them. They're tying it up 1-1 here onto Ruinberg. Now that's a great point to kind of point out, either for newer viewers, people who don't quite understand when that cap pressure is going down. You have it could be done 5 seconds, 4 seconds, but once a team gets that initial reset, I mean that is all the pressure. Yeah, and almost gone really, unless something crazy happens, because the tanks are there. They can just poke out, they can just take the shots, and they're going to be able to clean that one up in a second. An impressive thing that I saw coming out there from eClipse was a lot of them were spread over in the Delta Village side. It only looked like a couple of them were in the north, and I thought, okay, well, well, Eclipse or a Simp is pushing up. It's down to 15 seconds. There's no way these tanks, because at tier 10 they're a little bit slower, going to get there in time. But some of those guys, I can't remember who it was, people not in the Delta Village for Eclipse, found that one reset, and once that was done, like you said, it was just over. But also initially, right in the beginning, Simp pushed over at Baby Dragons, who was kind of doing the spotting where out of sight was in that A3 area before, and they kind of pushed around. They ignored him basically right in the beginning. Why would you ignore that tank? Why wouldn't you actually turn around, take him out, and then continue to push against that village for cover?
Well, but you're going to kind of stop yourself into a kill zone if you're talking about the exact tank that I think you were. I was kind of at a different location at the time.
Yeah.
So that is pretty much what you do. He's not going to cause you that big of an issue. You need to get over all the way across that and make sure that he's not going to cause a bigger issue by you stopping in a kill zone.
Okay. All right. So it's kind of those things where when you have tanks there that are what tanks can you put there that are like, okay, you can't ignore it, but we have to ignore it to kind of get the plan going, get the ball rolling.
Yeah, I mean there are always situations where that happens. If that's kind of what you're getting.
Yes.
At. Yeah. Yeah, and a 1390 is not a tank you necessarily want to leave there most of the time.
Okay.
But I mean, it's I don't believe that was actually what they were bringing. What was tank was it that Eclipse just brought in that little pocket there?
Oh, Baby Dragons was on it.
Baby Dragons was on.
Let's see what that was for you guys.
The Object 432.
Yes.
That one's got some pretty high DPM. It's kind of a rough tank to just kind of ignore. So it's a good pick of a tank on Eclipse's part to put there.
All right, well, ladies and gentlemen, it's all tied up 1-1. We're switching sides again. Let's get right into it to see who comes out on top, if anyone, for this Ruinberg map. Let's get right into it and take a look at what we've got for our tanks.
Hey, we've got the right team names. Eclipse with 2 IS-7s, 2 E5s, and 2 Object 140s, and RU-251. Simp with an FE-215B, an IS-4, 2 E5s, 57 Heavy, a Bat Shat, and an AMX 1390. So Simp still running 3 autoloaders here. That's the 1390 is one I would necessarily count as much. Yes, it is an autoloader. But in terms of, is it a tank that I would consider a big impact tank in this moment? Not necessarily, not the way they've been using him so far. He's going to go tuck himself away in A3 if they do the same thing again. And he will just sit there. And he's a good example of what we were just talking about, where you cannot ignore him. Oh, no. So he's going to stop short. I think they believe that he was a waste of a position last time. If they took him all the way over in A3, you can't stop there and shoot at him because he's going to put 6. So you can't ignore him, but you have to ignore him at the same time. If you stop, you're in a kill zone.
Gotcha.
But if you drive past, he's going to put 6 shots in the rear side of your tank, and he can penetrate them, almost any of these tanks with a 1390, very reliably from the rear side. We've already got action kicking off in the southeast.
Yeah.
As Eclipse is going to start their first attempt on 2K.
Crimson now taking some shots into Tigers in that 140. He was spotted very early on. I'm assuming a Droxus in that E5 was when he was spotting him, which is a fantastic spot to be in as well. They got a little bit of damage, and it looks like the Northern Cap this time is going to be obsolete for Eclipse. They want to push over here to the eastern side, but Simp is set up. They are in Delta Village, and they are ready and waiting. The question will be, can they hold it, or will Eclipse be able to take this one down? A lot of members pouring on the cap already. 27 seconds, but Eclipse is just going to push on the way through? Or, no, it looks like they are going to stop. Maybe they're just going to send a couple one Drock, and then E5 getting closer to Delta Village to try to get some of those angles.
They look like they're actually grouping together to move as a unit because they're about to cross some fire areas right now where, say, Crimson Corsair could light them up. He wisely holds a shot. If Crimson had just kind of taken that shot as an impulse there, he would have died. He's going to have a tricky escape here.
Oh, no, behind enemy lines.
He's actually going to get some cheeky little shots through this gap, and he's got to hold him. Although he is spotted, we can see that now. Any player here who has their name in yellow has been spotted. So this is going to give you a better look at what these players have to deal with. The only information these two teams have on each other is that Baby Dragons is right there, and then Crimson Corsair hasn't left that particular window at the moment. You can see Baby Dragons is still unlit because he's using that bush cover better. Crimson Corsair doesn't have any. He is spotting through this right now. It's a tricky shot to make, but it's not a hard one to make overall. As in, once you know how to do it, it's not particularly hard to do from there, but it's just tricky knowledge to know, I guess is what I'm trying to say here. So we're seeing some tanks from Eclipse getting intermittently spotted through all the gaps in the buildings. That shows you somewhat, they will know where Simp is by deduction at that point. You can see Baby Dragon slowly rocking back and forth right on this corner, doing a little angling here. He's just knocking it off now, but he was doing it right here to kind of check to see if anybody was spotting him. And that's not going to be too super likely. with that bush right there, but it's kind of a two-way street. If anybody spots him, then he gets intelligence. If he spots anybody else, then he gets intelligence. Out of sight, and Dark God Zim having a little bit of a fight here in the F road. Dark God Zim's probably going to hold back there. Tigers is also floating around. He looks like he took a little bit of damage.
Yep,
He could
right at the
potentially flank around the northern side here. He's going to switch with Dark God Zim. That is a very interesting call and potentially a great one. We will see, as he has a better chance of taking out of sight in a head-to-head than the RU-251. The RU-251, however, can do plenty of damage with high DPM from the rear. We already actually kicking off here.
Out of sight. He drove down. Looks like he was looking for Dark God. Then RU-251 saw Tigers and backed right out. Slammed on the brakes the moment that he was spotted.
Yeah, out of sight. Probably thinking he can get some cheeky little shots there on Dark God Zim. The Object 140 can also do plenty of damage into the eastern side here. And now Dark God Zim rotating all the way around. He's got shots on his Drox. He's going to start lighting him up, and the action's about to really hit home here as both teams start to draw the line in the sand, and here we go.
Delta Village is the home for Fires. Crimson Corsair takes a nice shot into Baby Dragons, and IS-7 going down for Eclipse, and the battle has been gun, ladies and gentlemen. Nitz taking some shots there from Honey Badger and Drock. Photo finishes on the reload. Let's see if anyone can keep Nitz alive. Will they be able to take Honey Badger down in time? No! Drock taking that E5 out with his E5, and now Honey Badger is the focus for Simp. A nice shot from Adroxus. Meanwhile, in the city, Tigers and out of sight going head-to-head. Dark God Zim is about to make it his photo finish, taking down Drock. It is 6 members alive for Simp against just the 4 for Eclipse, but the HP is so close still. Tigers taken down out of sight. That 1390 is out of the fight for Simp. Dark God Zim now running in. He's trying to make it as quick as possible to try to sway this in favor of Eclipse. Master Pupil, one more shot, over 2,000 points of damage. He's going to be going down here. Looks like Dryness is lining that one up, lets it go, and connects. Dryness now is the focus of fire for Eclipse. He needs to find some cover quickly, or his team needs to take down Dark God Zim, but Dark God Zim takes Crimson, and Tigers finds Dryness. It is now a 3-on-2. Eclipse has turned this around. 3 minutes and 10 seconds on the clock. Overlord Prime takes down Dark God. It is a 2v2 now, ladies and gentlemen. Overlord Prime and photo finish on the side of Simp versus T1 Diabetic and Tigers for Eclipse. What an amazing battle here that happened onto Delta Village. 2 minutes and 55 seconds on the clock. T1 Diabetic is below half health, trying to shoot at photo finish, trying to get him down just a little bit more so he can be more aggressive to push in. Meanwhile, the other 140 is roaming in here from the south, it looks like. Tigers there going to be able to line up some shots. Photo, again, is the only one spotted right now for Simp. Over the Prime still hidden. Tigers, meanwhile, sneakily moving up into Delta Village, trying to get a shot. He's going to try to poke out and take down photo finish as soon as possible. Now, David, looking at this kind of the setup here, we have a 5B and a T57 versus 2 140s. Who are you going to give it to?
I'm going to have to give it to the Simp side right here. Overlord Prime and Photo Finish just have so much DPM. As long as they can position Tigers out very quickly, it should be easy. Overlord Prime starting to slide out a little bit. He's got plenty of room to get away from D1 Diabetic, but he's going to drive directly across that, which is a super questionable move on my part. Once Overlord Prime gets out of here, he is one shot from Tigers. It is now tying much closer. T1 Diabetic is going to move in and try to isolate those with Tigers. Photo Finish has to make a big play if he wants to bring this one home.
Here we go. Let's see if he can. He takes a shot at T1, but takes one himself. He needs to take T1 Diabetic down right now, but he looks like he's one more shot away. It looks like Eclipse is going to pick this one up. Tigers maybe going for the ram. No, just backs right behind it. Photo needs to finish this one up, but Tiger, the shot bounces, and Photo will be able to pick it up, but right at the end, T1 Diabetic comes in for Eclipse. A nice pickup there, and they're going to increase that lead 2-1. What an explosive battle. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Tier 10 Tanks. Welcome to the World of Tanks Season 2.
That shouldn't have happened.
Woo!
That shouldn't have happened. There was just so much better firepower on Simp's side at that point in time. They were less maneuverable overall. So you can basically look at it as DPM versus maneuverability. Not that the 140s don't have great DPM on their own.
Okay.
But let's go ahead and take a look at stats while we've got the time. I know everybody wants them.
Stats are right.
So here we go. Tigers, with a lot of his rotational play, 43-44. That's just, that's so much damage from what I'm used to. T1 Diabetic delivering as well with 36-48. The two of them were obviously the two 140s that were alive there at the end. And the rest of the team, well, you can see them. Baby Dragon's the one getting isolated out the most, but that is somewhat the role of an IS-7. Not just a die, but, you know, actually, Dark God Zim, shout out to him. He took out the bad shot and really opened up the possibility of that even being one.
Really?
If it weren't for his play there, it would have been over. So props to Dark God. And for Simp is photo finish in the 34-17. He is, you know, he's always a great player in the heavy tanks. Overlord Prime following up with 27-97, and then Crimson and Nitz. So actually, our two fantasy picks middling in the pack so far.
Doing
Thank
it.
you. Thank you, boys, for that. So the T57 Heavy, I mean, Overlord Prime, he was cranking out clips. And that's one of the biggest differences we're going to see from what we're used to with autoloaders. I mean, the 5100 and the 1390, they took a long time to reload. So unless you watched all the way back in Season 1 where we were using T69s, a 4-shot autoloader that reloaded fairly quickly, you're probably not accustomed to this kind of reload in WGLNA, but they're cranking out clip after clip after clip. Wow. So there's not this time where it's like, okay, 57's down, we've got like a minute.
I'll reload.
No, you don't. You don't have that long. So Overlord Prime getting a lot of very vital clips, but that final decision not to go on the outside of the building and get shot at by T1 Diabetic when he was in the crossing, that put Simp in a very awkward position. I'm not going to hang it all on his neck. It's a team game. A lot of things happen to get them there at that point in time. Great movements from Simp, just some small execution points, but great play out of eClipse so far.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's see if eClipse can continue their victory over Simp, or if Simp can come back and tie it up. We're getting ready for our next match. Let's get right into it and take a look at what we've got for our tanks.
So for eClipse, we have two FE215Bs, two E5s, an Object 140 62A, a Object 432, a Waffentrugger Panzer IV, an FE215B, an IS-4, E5 Batchat, Object 140, W100, and AMX 1390. The last 7 of those are for our Simp there. So we have plenty of tanks. Plenty of the same tanks we're used to seeing here. Batchats, Object 140s, and kind of obviously establishing a meta out of everything here. And the FE215B seems to be a favorite on Ruinberg.
Absolutely. And also, meanwhile, what I also want to say, too, is it was funny. Right in the first 2 battles, everyone's going for the Northern Cap. That worked out to a tie. eClipse decides to go to the Eastern Cap. It worked out for him. Simp's like, you know what, let's go to the Eastern Cap as well. And I mean, I think that's, you know, I would say a wise choice. Either you saw that, you know, in the play. Actually, let me ask you that question. When you're in playing a team and you kind of go head-to-head for a moment, you guys are going after the same cap, you kind of notice something. Is it pretty easy to be like, hey, guys, this isn't going to work this time. Let's do something else? Or is it, you know, so mind games, so up in the air that it's okay to kind of just pick and choose what you want to do and stick to your guns on that? Meanwhile, Tigers in that T62A going down to that K0 position, trying to hold that one up, and he gets there, which is such a good position to be in as well. If you're trying to defend this Eastern Cap, he is backed off into a corner here, dropping just above half health there. Dryness doing a great job with that auto loader in that E100. Yeah, the waffle. Taking some shots himself. David, a T62A, is this one of those things we're talking about where it's just, you can't really ignore it, but you also can?
Oh, there's definitely not a tier 10 in this game that you can afford to really ignore.
Gotcha.
Just objectively, but it depends on the situation. I mean, obviously, you know, if I'm in a 2v1 or whatnot, and there's a full health IS-7, I'm probably going to ignore him in favor of something lower health. But,
sure.
You know, that T62 Tiger's
Done.
going down. He is, I'm not sure if he is actually the battle caller. I know he does do a lot of that for the clan that he's in. It's kind of an interesting history there that I'll get into at another time. I've known Tigers for quite a while here, but we'll talk about that again. So what you were originally asking, you kind of moved past there, was a question involving strategy.
Yes.
What that was?
Yeah, just the idea of, you know, when you're going to a battle, if you go head-to-head, you press against a team. So Simp versus eClipse, Simp has something in mind. They go for a fight, and they realize very quickly that, okay, maybe, you know, you kind of experience how the player is that day.
Yes. It can be very easy. It depends on your opponent. Sometimes there's an opponent that deliberately likes to scramble you. And it's like, okay, whatever the weakness was last time is going to be a strength this time. So we can't just assume we can do it again. So you kind of scrap it and try something else.
Sure.
But a lot of the time you can, if a team has a very standard defensive look that they bring, like they just keep doing the same thing all the time, then yes, you can easily look at it and be like, well, we adjust here and here and we'll win. Or we just got to scrap it and try something else. Baby Dragons rotating around to try and picks up Crimson Corsair, but Dryness sees this coming. He's going to set a trap for him. This is pretty much a nightmare situation for Baby Dragons, as Dryness is about to delete him from the face of the earth.
Oh, here we go. Baby Dragons crossing the center now. Crimson and Dryness taking the shots. Absolutely right. 632 points of damage. He takes some flack from Dark God Zim in that 140, but not too much indeed. It looks like Baby Dragons actually might have making out there. Meanwhile, Adroxus on the cap, taking some damage there in that 5B. Overlord Prime doing a good job providing cover fire from all the way across the courtyard there onto Honey Badger. Takes 748 there. Adroxus, though, is very, very low. Looks like Dark God Zim is being sent in to either take him out. He's getting very, very close. The rest of the tanks are Honey Badger taking Adroxus, and Adroxus is going to fall. That is the first tank for Simp going down, and that's going to be the 5B out of sight, stacking up those points. 30 seconds on the clock. Over the Prime taking down another member of eClipse, and that's another one as well. 3 kills there. Baby Dragons actually finds Dryden. It's over in the city. Crimson Corsair gonna finish off that 432. Master People take it down Nitz. 3 tanks remain for eClipse against the 4 for Simp. Photo finish, take it down Master. Dark God responding by taking down that 1390. Now once Crimson, who is on reload, makes into the fight, he should be able to sway this forward to the side of Simp. Dark God Zim and T1 Diabetic are trying to run around. Photo finish and Overload Prime being very aggressive, trying to take him down. Dark God taking a lot of damage there, just above half health. And David, once this bat check comes into play, I mean, it's pretty much over for eClipse, correct?
Yep. Bat chat. He went and cleaned up the tank that had escaped.
Baby Dragons.
Drynet's actually made an interesting play. You could look at it and see that he shot most of his clip into the Delta Village area, which was opening himself up to get taken out by the Object 430 that was floating around there at the time, Baby Dragons, who I originally thought he was going to delete, like I said earlier.
Right.
But Drynet's made a good call. He assisted the rest of his team, and he knew that Baby Dragons was going to spend some time killing him. So he effectively actually took out Baby Dragons from the fight while adding his own clip damage into the main fight, biasing the fight directly into Simp's hands. And then when Crimson Corsair was started his reload after dumping his clip into the fight, he went and brushed up the 430 and then came back. So a lot of good decisions from Simp, a lot of excellent decisions from Simp.
There we
So
go.
that was a well-earned victory right there.
Having picked up that one, Simp with 3 tanks still remaining on the battlefield. Congratulations to them. That is tying it up onto Ruenberg 2-2. And David, like we were talking about, just another thing I want to bring up is we asked the question, or I asked the question, I think during the qualifiers of, with these new tier 10 tanks, we're going to be having these, old maps. How much is it going to change? Are there going to be these crazy new things we're going to be seeing? But you're absolutely correct. I mean, the maps don't change. The layout is the same. The caps are in the same place. Even though we're in a tier 10, we are still seeing the same kind of play. And so it really kind of does translate over to player skill individually.
Yes, and that will change quite a bit as the season goes on, but it'll never stray so far that everything just looks alien to you or feels completely wrong, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So as it is right now, mostly running off a previous meta, and there will be things that we discover, or that the teams discover, that we discover.
That we get to
from them.
discover with them.
That it's like, well, a combination of tanks on this corner makes it virtually impossible to take. Which might not have existed at tier 8, right?
Okay.
Like, I don't know, 2 E100s and a JP 100 or something, right? Which, off the top of your head, is like a really daunting lineup. And it seems like it's very easy to maneuver around. But all I'm saying is there could very easily be some place on some map where putting something like that causes all sorts of problems.
Okay. Now, we are getting into a new map, something we just talked about that we haven't seen yet, Prorowka. So we're going to be playing this next. We're going into this one. David, just a quick little kind of breakdown. I guess we can do it more in depth, but which side does this favor? Is it defense or is it offense?
Neither.
Or do we just,
really.
Yeah.
It's kind of just a brawl to begin with.
Okay, cool.
So I would say it favors defense because they're on the defensive side and they have a lot of advantages to them inherently.
Sure.
But at tier 10, I'm not super familiar with the terrain on this map, but
Sure.
height changes will make a big difference here. At tier 8, I would have probably given it to the northern side most of the time in those brawls. So
okay. We'll be seeing indeed. Another thing I know about this one is there's that huge hill over on the eastern side that you can go up onto, and I can't wait to see if there's some sweet snipes from across the map. I'm excited to see maybe there's artillery's played. We don't know. We haven't seen this map yet, but we're about to, ladies and gentlemen, as Simp versus eClipse are now on Prorowka. eClipse on offense, Simp on defense. Let's get right into it and take a look at what we've got for our tanks.
For eClipse, we have 2 140s, 2 STBs, 2 62As, and an RU-251. That tells me something already. Simp and I-7 and E5, 2 140s, an STB, and 2 AMX-30s. Also tells me something. Simp is favoring somewhat of a slower lineup, just a little bit, but they're bringing 2 tier 9s for a lot of DPM, so it's honestly an extremely strong lineup that will be difficult for eClipse to break, but they're mostly maneuverable setup that also has a lot of DPM on it. So this could be a very strong fight very early. Dark God Zim is going to float around to the west side, and he's going to try to get just get some spots on the rear side, do some damage on, to say, the IS-7 that's probably over, or that he will probably be able to shoot. And the rest of these two teams are going to have to go head-to-head. In the eastern side, which is where, honestly, one of the main hotspots this map is going to be decided on in the future, as the hill can be very, very, very advantageous, or it can be so far out of the fight that it's pointless.
Sure.
So this is a tricky one. I expect most of the fights to be solved essentially through the 5 through 7 columns with kind of support positions around that. But Tiger's already getting lit up as Simp is focus firing on him right now.
Going very aggressive there, and Nitz is going to pick that one up in that 140 for a 140 going down. And it looks like eClipse now all bunched up here. The only one not with him is that RU-251. They've decided to push now over on the other side of the railroad tracks, heading to the west. And Adroxis is going to be the one that they're going to be focusing. Poor Adroxis. He is now being surrounded. These vultures on eClipse are taking him down before they goes down. Adroxis is like, I'm taking you down. Baby Dragons as he picks that one up. That is 2 tanks falling for eClipse. Not a single one for Simp yet. And as I say, T1 Diabetic is going to take down Adroxis. It is now a 6v5 in favor of Simp. And Overload Prime taking down Drock in that T62A. The rest of eClipse having to push on the way forward. They're just going to try to isolate Photo Finish and Crimson as best as they can. But this is not looking good for them at all. T1 Diabetic taking even more damage there. 765. Nit's going to finish him off. Now it's Master Pupil and Honey Badger kind of by themselves getting surrounded now. A little bit of payback for what they just did to Adroxis. Photo Finish taking down Master. And Dark God Zim over by himself, doing as much as he can, taking some shots over across the valley there. Not really connecting much. He got maybe a little bit of damage under Overload Prime. Honey Badger, though, 1,100 points of damage. One more, and he is going to be taken out of the fight. That is going to be Crimson. They know where Dark God Zim is, as you can see, ladies and gentlemen. When the names are in yellow, that means that they are spotted for the other team. No bush is going to save you now, Dark God Zim. Here comes Simp. Nitz leading the charge. Nitz coming right behind him. Overload Prime going to finish him off, and that is going to be a quick victory here, going over to Simp. And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Pro Rivka. What else can we say? A lot of the team bunched up right in the center there. We had all of eClipse really kind of hugging that railroad track. One of the things I was going to point out that I just kind of noticed toward the end is the caps are so close together. Is it because that railroad track is just super, it's not as easy to get over? I mean, obviously, it looked like there's only 2 locations kind of by the caps that you can kind of go over either other side of the hump. But with those caps so close together, what is that going to allow for the defensive team? Is that just a massive victory having them so close?
They're separated by a lot of objects. So they're effectively, even though their distance is very close, they're effectively very, very split. So it focuses the defense into a couple places and lets the defense go strong and make some very aggressive moves to start everything out. So it's a little bit confusing if you're not super experienced with it. But you can think of it in a sense very similar to how Cliff works. Technically, both caps on Cliff are fairly close together if you think about it. In the north, there's a position kind of in the middle of the 2. You can guard both, right?
Yeah.
But you can easily drag one team to the other one
and then
cap the other one. But Cliff's a little bit more of an interesting example of that doesn't quite fit it. But the end result is pretty much the same. A lot of the best teams will play a lot more aggressively. And Simp right now is actually playing a game that is not necessarily super aggressive, but I'm not going to criticize them for it because I think they have a very good read on what eClipse's understanding of the map is. So they're using the right strategy for the right opponent.
Wow.
But in the future, I think they may need to be a little bit more aggressive. But I could very easily be wrong about this at tier 10 because this map plays differently all the time.
All right, well,
depending on what the tanks are.
Well, let's see if this stays the same or if the meta will change. Ladies and gentlemen, we're into the next battle. Let's get right into it. We switch sides and take a look at what we've got this time for our tanks.
So for eClipse, we have 2 E5s, 2 140s, 2 STBs, and RU-251. For Simp, we have an Object 260. That's interesting. That's a mission tank.
Okay.
That I haven't heard positive reviews about.
Okay.
2 Bat Chats, an Action X, 2 Object 140s, and an RU-251. So Simp's attempt at offense will be a learning experience for all of us here. Let's go ahead and check out this Object 260.
Yeah.
Any second here. It is a Droxus on
Found it.
He is getting a boost from 2 Bat Chats to get him in a position
Look at that.
extra quick.
Battle buddies.
Also point out their camo is back up and running today. A little bit of extra swag for Simp here. Object 460, you can see. It's got kind of a weird combination of turret and hull. A lot of damage for Dark God Zim, or coming out onto Dark God Zim
incredible.
to start everything out here. Out of sight. Out of sight is the only one that's spotted for Simp, and he is near the front of this line. He's trying to do some proximity lighting and hoping he can get people that are kind of peeking over the edge. Drawcap is the only one that's super exposed, or sorry, not super exposed, but exposed to that spotting. However, he's not exposed to the fire. And this is a map you can only really see what's going on unless you get close to the ground. So we take a little look here.
Yeah, look at those hills. My goodness.
We see him get spotted, and we look at it from this high view. And we're like, oh, how can they be getting
How
away?
come they're not shooting
and
him?
The reality is, as soon as you get down there on the ground, it is nigh impossible to shoot some of these people, as
Sure.
there's just little bits of hatches poking up along this terrain a lot of time.
Sure. Well, one thing I want to also just kind of note is Eclipse, really biasing this western side here, and Simp doing the same exact thing. It's almost like they knew what Eclipse was going to be doing. They present themselves over here. They sit, they wait, and they got a little bit of early damage there onto Dark God Zim. Now here comes the push for Simp. Adrox is leading the charge. He is spotted though, and he's taking a lot of damage here. 714. He's slowed down. He might have been shot in the track, and that object 260. Let's see if those reviews, David, hold true, or if he might be able to show us something amazing from this new tank. The fight now has begun. Here comes Simp rushing right into Eclipse, but Baby Dragons is going to take down Adrox as that 260 is falling, and the fight is going to come down to focus fire right here over on the west side. Drawcap is extremely low now. Crimson going to finish him off. Dark God Zim and that RU251 doing a good job. Master People takes down Dry, and it's Crimson Corsair taking down Honey Badger. A 1-for-1 exchange. Tigers from the back, and that 140 picks up Overload Prime, and now Baby Dragons is the one who is going to be next to fall, and it's going to be Nits to pick that one up. Out of sight now, making it to the fight. Master People taking down Crimson. It is 4v3 in favor of Eclipse now. The HP, though, not too far of a difference. Simp doing a great job holding it on, and RU255 against an RU255. Dark God Zim for the side of Eclipse versus Out of Sight. Out of Sight looks like he's got him on the ropes, but a nice shot there coming out from Dark God to make Out of Sight kind of back off. Photo finish, meanwhile, taking some damage there from Tigers as well as Master People. Over 1,100 points of damage. One more shot. He's going to be going down as 1,400 go across there in that tank. Tigers is almost reloaded. He takes the shot. His shot misses. Out of sight. Takes down Dark God Zim. Let's see if that was enough for Sim to be able to crawl their way back into this fight. Tigers finally finishes off. Photo finish. That Centurion AX is down. Meanwhile, Nits and Out of Sight are the only ones alive for Simp. 1,500 points of damage going on to that team, and Eclipse looks like they might be able to pick this one up. If they can spread their damage out evenly, they can focus the right target. I'm not sure there's much Simp can do.
Should be fairly easy for Eclipse to close it out here. Now, Tigers has a damaged ammo rack and a fuel rack, so he is, maybe that's the loader. I'm not entirely sure what this icon here means yet. We'll find it out. Something involving the loading, so he's loading a little bit slower.
Woo!
And Out of Sight had his gunner down, so he's essentially useless.
He's out.
At that point. No gunner in an RU251 is not a good
Not a good place to
situation.
be in at all.
Granted, you pretty much want everything running all the time, so it's a little bit of an obvious statement, but
Sure.
yeah.
But in those situations, congratulations to Eclipse picking up that one, tying it up 3-3. But now, one thing I want to see right in the beginning, we talked about how Simp would be playing a more aggressive push. We saw right in the beginning when they were on defense, they pushed up very aggressively. Eclipse as well, met him head to head. Didn't quite work out for him. It looks like Eclipse not quite doing what Simp is going to be doing that time. We just got word that there is a timeout from Eclipse. They're going to take a break, maybe analyze what happened, and get right back into that. But again, looking at the kind of a slower play coming out from both of those teams than we just saw. Do you think that they're just trying that because the first one didn't quite work out for him? Obviously, it worked out for Eclipse in that sense.
There's a lot of meta when you play it very fast. When you kind of meet in the middle and look for people. Perhaps at this tier, this is a big possibility I haven't necessarily considered that much. Perhaps at this tier, it's not easy to get a lot of the intelligence that you need to find where you need to dive on people for the appropriate kind of rush tactics that you used to do in this. Or this is just the better way of doing it. But two kind of classic ways of playing the defensive side. And if the defensive side doesn't come out and get aggressive, you actually have to slow the game down a lot and go very, very slowly on offense to effectively dig them out.
Okay.
And gather enough intel to then figure out where to make your big, faster move. So right now, it's hard to say exactly where the meta for Pro will lie as the season goes on until we see a lot more teams play it.
Sure. Another thing also I'm asking, do you think this is going to be a map that we're going to see artilleries on? Would an artillery thrive in the situation where there's hills?
No. It is one that you would think so. But the problem that is, you need an artillery that fires very, very, very fast. Or what happens is you just create a fight. As soon as that artillery fires,
Everyone's like,
ideally
go,
you get
go,
them to
go.
miss, and you just create a 7-on-6 essentially for
Right.
20, 30, 40 seconds it takes for an artillery to reload. It's gone, it's out. And there's not a lot of hard cover positions you can get to.
Okay.
So if they take a tier 8 arty and you take a tier 8 scout, as soon as that arty fires, if it doesn't hit anybody, you send your scout in, and if he gets intel, anybody he gets intel on dies because they can't hide. So
Gotcha.
it's...
Yeah, you think it'd be work because it's like, oh, there's a lot of hills.
Maybe
no
we'll
one
see
can get
already.
those shots, but
I personally would avoid it on this map. I would use it on situations where you can create staggered lines and good positions that people have to fight their way through to protect the arty.
okay.
So if you can't, put it this way, if the map is so open or easy to move around that the enemy team can quickly, easily create a tank-on-tank
Don't
battle,
bring an arty.
you don't want an arty.
All right, makes sense. That's for you guys at home. If you guys are in the situation, quick map, tank-on-tank battle, don't bring an arty. If they have an arty, rush them once they take that shot. Now, again, we've only seen 2 so far plays from this match, and no one's utilized the hill yet, which I thought, again, when I play in the matches, everyone goes to that hill.
So the hill, yeah, in public matches, sure. But
Us
this is a
pubs.
very large map, and you actually lose a lot of draw range and spotting range from that hill. There's a big chunk of water around it.
Yes.
So trying to fire it in the middle, you can really only fire like a tile into there. So like 100 meters past that railroad
really?
is about as far as you can even
Oh.
render
Oh, okay.
sometimes. So it's
Makes sense.
it's tricky, and it's actually very easy to shoot the top of the hill from a lot of angles.
Gotcha.
The middle
so,
is pegged.
so kind of a death zone up there. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it is all tied up. eClipse 3, SIMP 3. We've switched sides again. Let's get down into it and take a look at what we've got for our tanks.
For eClipse, we have a bat chat, 2 140s, 2 STBs, an Object 432, and an M53, M55, so they will bring Artie on offense. That's a possibility I didn't quite think about, so we'll get all the way through that, what that means here in a second. Simp with an IS-7 and E5, a bat chat, an Action X, 2 140s, and an RE251.
eClipse,
This
did you
is-
not just hear David?
This, well, there's 2 possibilities here. Is that they know better than I do, or that they're expecting Simp to play it slowly enough for them to get time to shoot that.
Gotcha.
And if they do, they're going to win. That's what it'll come down to. So perhaps they got a good read on Simp the first time around. They're like, okay, Simp's going to play it slow against us. That worked because we bought some of their kind of their camouflage tricks where they were hiding people. They lulled them into a trap before they showed where a lot of those positions were.
Okay.
If you went back and looked at each one of Simp's positions, you'll find most of them were in places they couldn't be spotted or they weren't spotting anybody else. It was a trap in a very big way.
Gotcha.
So eClipse is going to adjust to that. They're going to find a place to put their arty. And Simp is not coming directly after them because they can't, because the i7 and the E5 kind of hold them back from going big that quickly. Otherwise, they could use the RE251 to scout and roll in on people. I would not be surprised to see a lot of people bring more bat shots kind of as a mobile strike force here, but there's definitely diminishing returns on them. Now, in our league, you can only have 2 of them anyways.
Right.
In other leagues, people may go all the way up to 3, but I think you have to have a lot of depression or otherwise strong armor to play a lot of the hills around this area. Simp is lining up largely on the 2. Kind of just waiting for maybe what happened to them last time, but right now, eClipse doesn't seem interested in that whatsoever.
T1 Diabetic for the side of eClipse now is going on top of the hill. Looks like he's going to be followed there by Drock in that artillery. Now, obviously, the better angles that you can get in artillery, or the higher angles you can get, better. So the hill, pretty ideal for that?
Oh, yeah. Like we have discussed before, the higher the angle on the artillery, in effect, the more accurate it'll be when it hits at the end. To a certain degree. It depends on how much that angle adds to your overall distance.
Gotcha.
Because the farther a round travels, the more chance that the little bit of RNG that makes it move around, that'll become a
Decrease.
bigger deal. Because you think about it in terms of angles, right? And an angle very close to where that angle is created is not a very far different distance between one side of the angle and the other. But the further away you get from that, the larger that distance is.
Gotcha,
Basically like
gotcha.
trigonometry, right?
Yes.
So that is all of artillery comes down to basics of trigonometry and geometry in a
Wow.
lot of ways. But we'll talk about that a little bit more at another time. Simp's just going to own the entire west side of the map. This is how we've seen Pro play out a lot of the time in the past.
Okay.
In a different format when you didn't have these caps necessarily to worry about. Because right now, Simp's 2 cap is wide open. And eClipse is about to find that out. So I'm actually surprised they don't already have some sort of pressure on it right now. But it's divided down the 6th line. And oftentimes I would give that advantage to the team in the west once they get up against the rail yard. But there are counter moves, and it becomes a very meta situation that only, I think, extremely veteran teams will fully understand if they get in that fight.
Okay.
But the basics are you want to get the top and bottom parts on your opponent and have them stuck in between you. So like the EF6 area or the B6 area or the J7 area, those are kind of their main tank hotspots, the only crossings. And you want to take 2 of those from your opponent and trap them in between them.
That makes sense.
So you high-low them at the same time, right?
Yeah.
But we could talk about a lot of that stuff all day. It seems like we might start getting some action here. Tiger's getting some, well, attempting to get some spots, but the trees blocked him and he wasn't able to get them. He, in fact, was spotted and returned by Crimson Corsair. So right now the only team with intelligence to operate on is Eclipse.
Wow.
Now they actually have a spot on Overlord Prime, but that's not useful to them at all. And a lot of pressure is going to force SIMP to make a big move right now. Tigers is probably the one that is in the biggest risk, as Nitz and Crimson Corsair will come out after him. Nitz is going to get up against the wall first, then buy time for Crimson to come up against him. But they are running out of time very quickly. 10 seconds left on the clock. SIMP has got to have to make a big move.
That's right. Here we go. Let's see if SIMP can find the resets. Pushing over. Dryness has to be careful. Here comes photo finish. A nice shot there. Looks like from Nitz. Looks like that was underneath the railroad track. You might have to confirm that for me, but that was an amazing shot. 8 seconds on the clock. Now, again, the pressure still going over Eclipse. Nitz finds that shot again. He does take some damage in return, but if he can continue to do this, he's going to whittle Eclipse down slowly but surely. Drock taking a lot of damage in that M50B. The RU-251 for SIMP doing a great job taking him down out of sight. Does finish off that artillery, and that is going to be a tank falling for Eclipse. SIMP still has all members on the clock. They have now pulled Master Pupil for Eclipse off of the cap as Honey Badger takes a lot of damage from photo finish and Nitz as well. Tigers with just one more shot on that bat chat needs to make it count. The question is, how? I just don't know what that looks like, because it looks to me as if SIMP might be taking this one slowly but surely away from Eclipse. They do have a tank down. Drox just takes a little bit of damage there. Dryan is going to respond, taking a shot at a T1 Diabetic in that STB1. Master People is still spotted. Dark God, Zim, and Baby Dragons coming from the back. Out of sight still on that RU-251. Decided to take the hill. Will he make it into the fight in time to make a big difference, or does SIMP have this one in the bag already? 2 minutes and 38 seconds. Eclipse is actually pulling members off of the cap, and it looks like they're just going to try to take the fight where they can. I don't know if they think that they have an overmatch or not. It'll be interesting to see how this develops. Meanwhile, in the back, photo finish, and it's still kind of facing off in a little bit stalemate against Tigers. Crimson Corsair taking down T1 Diabetic, and the fight in the middle has begun. Damage going across, 520 going to Honey Badger. Dryness picking that one up. Another tank falling for Eclipse. It looks like SIMP is going to pick this one. Will Eclipse be able to turn around? But the HP deficit is just so massive between these two teams. SIMP with 6,800, Eclipse with 2,400 now as Overlord Prime takes down Master. Adroxus takes down Dark God, and it is just Baby Dragons and Tigers alive for Eclipse with one more shot in the baby. That'll do it. Overlord Prime picking that one up, and SIMP gonna claim this victory, making it 4-3 against Eclipse. SIMP on the defense. Eclipse's artillery not quite working out for him, and I totally see what you mean there. As you're watching, guys, you guys saw in the picture-in-picture down the bottom left-hand corner of your screen, he took the shot, did not connect with any bit of damage, and that reload timer was immense. And in that time, I mean, no one responded to it. SIMP didn't press, but I could see if you did, you're like, oh, it's gonna be over.
If you don't hit that shot, it's gonna be a big problem. I consider it. You're going to have a more accurate shot to a certain extent from higher ground. You're gonna have more shots available to you, as you can reach behind cover, but it is a little bit strange. Most people are used to firing at equal height. And as soon as you go up or down on the receiving end or the originating end, doesn't matter technically, once the difference is there, the shot characteristics, it comes in at a different angle. It comes in and it feels very different. So unless you're experienced with it,
practice
very
a lot
hard
with
to
that
hit.
one.
And they just didn't get a lot of shots out on target there. So let's go to stats. We can take a look at it. Draw cap, 2 shots, 2 splashes for 115.
Yep.
Not a solid connection. Just not a whole lot of damage, obviously, coming out. I mean, we saw the entire team for SIMP is still left alive. It's a pretty dominant victory.
Yeah.
The highest for them was a Droxus, 2505, followed by the Action X, then the E5. So you've got essentially the tank with the most armor, so the most of that happened there kind of at the end of the fight. And that's debatable versus with him and the E5 as the most in this situation. But the rest of the tanks that got a lot of damage are the Action X and the E5, both of which have the higher depression out of all the rest of these tanks. Out of sight doing a good job picking up the artillery and just generally adding damage. And then Nitz and Overlord and the Bat Chat were mostly
The resets.
resets and trying to bully ends of things. So SIMP showed me a lot about how that goes on now, and I'm not ready to say that it's a map that's heavily favored by defense, that you can camp it, but I will say that it looks exceedingly difficult to play out on offense against a team that has it as well rehearsed as SIMP does at the moment. There's a couple things there that would have had to have changed for eClipse to have a better chance. Getting rid of the artillery is one of them.
Sure.
And it's just tricky to stop all those different angles and that shot underneath the rail yard all at the same time.
That's what I was going to bring
very
up.
difficult. That's an impressive shot. I'm sure a lot of people are learning it from the first time. But to pro leaguers, it is nothing new, and they needed to have that
A response for that.
Yeah, response for it, and they have that kind of in their playbook and in their understanding from the beginning.
Sure. All right, well, let's see if eClipse can change anything, because SIMP just needs one more victory to take the match. Let's get down into it and take a look at what we've got for our tanks.
For eClipse, 2 E5s, 2 140s, 2 STBs, and RU-251. For SIMP, a Bat Shat, an Action X, 2 140s, 2 STBs, and an RU-251. They're running much lighter on their offensive effort this time around. Perhaps that is how they see the map to begin with, or just sort of trying to vary up their offensive strategies so that they're harder to read. Either way, we'll find out very soon. Dark God Zim is going to be spotting here on the eastern side for eClipse. If he's not careful, he can easily get caught out in this position. And especially careful is by the time he realizes he's spotted, it could be too late, and there could be a lot of guns firing at him. That doesn't seem to be the case.
This is like a good idea.
At the moment. It's a delicate thing to scout pro. Trust me, I've done it plenty of times, and it is never something I would call easy.
Yeah, we're talking about how your kind of view on scout drivers is you hold them in high regards.
I hold everybody in high regard in different ways. That is the one that I've traditionally found that people do not fully understand most often. So it is a bit of a rarity, and that is why I like to talk about it more.
Wow. Look at this.
Because people don't typically understand it, and that's kind of what we're doing it for, is for the viewer angle. It's a lot of interesting things about why the amount of knowledge it takes to run a scout that well is very tricky. But Dark God Zim on cap already.
Whew.
Or sorry, not on cap, Dark God Zim. SIMP on cap already. And eClipse is starting to try to find their positions for the resets just the way SIMP did on him. Looks like SIMP's actually trying to coax that response out of him. They're going to bully the middle as soon as it happens.
Wow.
And eClipse has 5 seconds to get that reset.
Here we go. They got the reset just indeed, and it looks like he's going to push SIMP off, and that was what they were waiting for, to take the overmatch over on the other side. eClipse is in some trouble here as they are pressuring SIMP. SIMP is pressuring them over the side. Drynix, though, taking a lot of damage, and Drock is going to pick up that kill. Honey Badger is still alive. It looks like the tank that they were focusing is not down yet. Out of sight is the one. It looks like he's going to try to take this one down, but Adroxus taking so much damage. Overlord Prime takes Honey Badger down. Dark God Zim fighting Adroxus, and that is an exchange for an exchange. A tank for a tank as Overlord Prime finds Tiger. It is now 5 tanks with Photo just barely holding on for dear life at 10 health against the 5 with T1 Diabetic just barely holding on, and he finally goes down. Overlord Prime picking that one up. It is 5 tanks for SIMP against the 4 for eClipse. Photo Finish is still alive there. No! As I say it, poor Photo Finish goes down. Dark Azim, a nice pickup there from the back on the run, and that RU-251 is now tied 4-4 with the HP advantage for eClipse. It is now, it is really now kind of up to them not to lose this, I'm assuming. They are on defense. They have the time on their side. They have the HP advantage. But David, as far as tanks goes, is that the case?
It's definitely an eClipse's side.
Gotcha.
Completely. They're on defense. SIMP's Gambit pretty much fell apart on
Yes, yeah.
eClipse spotted hook, line, and sinker. I'm just not sure it was a good enough plan to begin with, and if it was executed as well as it should have been, but eClipse was already prepared for that kind of thing to happen. Essentially, SIMP was trying to get them to go into the northern part for the resets. They weren't able to get it out of the angles of those northern tanks. Crimson Corsair does have Dark God Zim a little bit dead to rights, but Dark God Zim can kind of sashay away here if it gets either over the berm or around the corner. And Crimson Corsair gets taken about by draw cap, saving Dark God Zim, bringing eClipse even more command and control here, as all three of their tanks are stuck in the bowl. It's virtually impossible to get out of this, given the positions that eClipse has. Once they step up onto those angles, everywhere you go, you're taking damage just to try and get out, or you're running long and far away where the hull down tanks can rip you up all day. Master Pupil's coming in to finish this off right now.
He's just
by getting the flank.
Go around the side.
And this is a classic way of finishing it off. Eclipse all in at once. You've only got 3 guns. You can't fire everywhere. Master Pupil takes out Nitz.
There it is.
Dark God Zim's going to start hunting out of sight. And are you hatred? Overlord Prime's about to go down to Master Pupil again. And Dark God Zim, will he get it with a ram?
What
He
the
does.
ram! Nicely done. And that's going to be Eclipse tying it up 4-4 against SIMP, going into our tiebreaker match here. What a bad position to be in. We've talked about kind of the mental, the kind of mental side of this game, and you said, time and time again, of a really, really bad place to be is when you set a trap for an opponent, the trap actually works exactly how you intended it to, and then you still lose, and that's exactly what has happened to SIMP there. Yep. I mean, that's just not going to feel good at all. I mean, you've got this situation where, and I saw it, like, oh yeah, we're going to bring him in the back. They did it. They pushed over, and Honey Badger, it seemed, was their target. He did not go down. It did fall apart. And is that just the rehearsal of that? Does that come down to, oh, maybe just that time it didn't work out for SIMP, it'll work next time, or was that just a poor plan?
They may have bounced a lot of shots in their first move around that corner. Sometimes a strategy like that can come down as simple as we just need to nuke the first tank we find and then get on the other side of the berm. But there was a lot. I felt like a lot of bounced shots and a lot of just kind of an awkward exchanges there as the match just continuously stayed so long there in that middle fight. And that's not what you want to have running what SIMP did at all. So perhaps we can review that strategy in the future after we've gotten a little bit more data. Yeah. I think it's got inklings of something right, and they need to kind of reposition their tanks a little bit differently, but not a bad attempt at all.
No. Now we've just got word that SIMP has chosen defense for the tiebreaker match, which means they either had the fastest cap time or the most damage while they were on attack. So either one of those have been true, and they've chosen defense, which makes sense. The tiebreaker match is Ruinberg, so we're going to be going back to Ruinberg here, which will be interesting. We'll see if they can either develop, either team can develop strategies from what they saw in the beginning and use it against them. If there'll be any mind games, some new metas that pop out. I mean, is this a time where, I mean, it's early on in the season. We don't know how well rehearsed either of these teams are, but I've got to assume some of them have those cheeky little plays, or those crazy tanks. Is this a good time to pull that out on a map that you've already played before?
No, but it's do or die. You got to get those points.
Right.
So yeah, before we get into the battle real quick, for damage overall, Rome with 2936 in his Object 140, Drawcab with 2433. They're both the leaders for Eclipse there. STB, Master Pupil also bringing in 1969. For SIMP, 2299 for Crimson Corsair, 1918 for Nitz, 1807 for Overlord Prime, 1702 for Photo Finish. And the only reason I'm going this low is because it's 1413 for Out of Sight and his RU251, which is huge.
So much damage.
And then it drops both STBs, 397 for Drynitz and 0 for Adroxus. So there's your problem.
Yeah.
Right then and there. One of your STBs put up 0 damage, and just...
It's almost like bringing artillery. That misses its shot.
Yeah, not enough. It's a dead tank. It's not. It doesn't exist. And I can take a quick looker here, and that's a number of shots, 2 hits, no penetration. So it's no need to single out Adroxus, or I don't mean to single out Adroxus, but I got to single out Adroxus. It's probably an overall strategic thing, though, as this is a team game.
Sure.
So
not on one player at all.
I'd have to go back to really rule whose fault it is. But
and we
it
will.
Happens. Even if it is his fault, it happens.
That's right.
Whatever.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's all tied up 4-4. Eclipse versus SIMP. SIMP is on defense. Eclipse is on offense on Ruinberg. Let's get down and see what we've got for tanks and see who takes this tiebreaker battle.
For Eclipse on offense with 250Bs and IS-7, 2 bat shots, a W100 and RU251. You're talking about those change-up strats. Here's one of them. That's a lot of autoloaders. Go big or go home, boys. SIMP with an FE215B, 2E5, so 57 heavy. Batchat at W100 and RU251. They themselves are rocking a lot of autoloaders and a lot of DPM.
Wow.
Tricky to say who's got the better lineup. It's totally going to depend on the engagement zone and kind of exactly how heavy this is. But if everybody smacks into each other head to head, it is all about focus fire and damage sharing. And right now, SIMP has better exchange, better positions for those. Master Pupil and Rome are going to be driving into a firefight, and this is already looking super bad for Eclipse unless they can sashay away from this. They're going to bias themselves to the other side. That might be the brilliant play that they need.
The first 2 shots missing for SIMP. Finally, one connects on a Rome for 418 in that batch up, but they have gotten to positions where they need to be. The only damage really is from Out of Sight, who can't push up any further because those 2 50Bs from Eclipse have gone around. This is exactly what we saw, I believe, in our first match against these 2 teams. Eclipse over bringing those 2 50Bs to the west. Meanwhile, the rest of the team over on the north. Will it play out the same way, or only time will tell here. A lot of members spotted for SIMP and a lot for eClipse, so there is no really mystery where either of these teams are. Drock taking a little bit of damage in that IS-7. With so much of this has already happened. It's only been it's already 6 minutes and 43 seconds. Only about a minute and a half has gone by. Everyone's in their positions. Definitely a lot faster pace than the first time around we just saw Ruinberg. Dark God Zim in that RU2Q1.
All 7 tanks were SIMP in one place. They're going to have to force this fight or they're going to have to lose. And eClipse could get on cap right now and probably bring it home.
Here we go. Let's see who's going to do it. Nis taking a lot of damage. Overlook Prime taking a lot as well. But Adroxus is going to pick up Rome. That is the first tank falling of the match. And it's on the side of eClipse. Master Pupil trying to make his way as he's running away. But he is going to be followed and chased down by a lot of members of SIMPs whose turrets are turned to that position. But like you said, David, they are putting 3 tanks on the west. It's dropping that cap to 28 seconds. SIMP now needs to look at they were going for the wrong cap. They're turning on the way. They realize
it's only out of sight they can get back in that amount of time. Actually, Crimson Corsair probably can as well. But
he's
Master
set on
Pupil's
fire.
Trying to stop out of sight right now. 15 seconds left on cap. Crimson Corsair is driving into death at worst, death and a reset at best. It's all on his shoulders again. And eClipse has made a brilliant play to try and bring this home.
It does not matter what is happening over on the north. What only matters right now is if Crimson can get this reset. He gets annihilated before he can even get a shot off, and that looks like it's gonna be it, as Adroxus is not gonna have enough time. The cap is at 0. eClipse has the victory. They have picked up against SIMP a 5-4 beautiful comeback there onto Ruinberg. What an amazing play. The overcommitment for SIMP in the north. They were all dry. It looked like for a second they thought the northern cap was it. They're like, uh-oh, nope, it's the west. Just not enough time.
So before we go to commercial or before we take a break here, you asked, you know, when you're on offense and you run a strategy, you kind of see what went wrong and just do it again. And we talked about that.
They just did
that
it.
was that.
They did it quicker.
Right there. They sat down and they looked at it. They're like, well, we're
Exactly.
on offense again. So when you go to the bat chats, scope the A line and then sweep to the east a little bit because they're overweighting it a lot. So only 2 tanks in the mid can really shoot you. You can take that damage, not a big deal. Get against the buildings. We got a W100 to back you up. That's going to look scary. Our 250Bs are going to go stomp in the in the Delta Village, dump their clip just to make sure if this devolves into an HP fight that they can
we have
win,
the advantage.
and then pull back and sit on cap because it was right there last time.
Woo!
And unfortunately for SIMP, they didn't see it coming. They actually took out too many of their tanks, and they did. That's just a very big mistake on their part. But a brilliant play by eClipse, and an overall great set by both of them.
Congratulations to both the teams, but congratulations to eClipse for picking that one up 5-4. Ladies and gentlemen, match number 1 is done. Match number 2, Simple Tankers versus Ping 999, is coming up after this.